Welcome to the Wooper Club League Season 17, Weeks 5 and 6 Power Rankings. We are now 3/4 of the way through the season. We actually have a couple of playoff spots locked up, but maybe not as many as you think. The race here is getting very tight. I am your host, IllLogic. I'm the coach of the Buffalo Bouffalant, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, SteveChuck, coach of the Waterdeep Wobbuffets.
Hey, everybody.
Still have some more trades and transactions to get through. Nothing effective week 5, but quite a bit effective week 6, and these will all kind of go together, as you will see momentarily. First off, it's just an innocent looking trade here with the CL Steamrollers trading with free agency, picking up a Bayonet in place of Cragnal, but I think maybe we need a little more context here as well, Steve. As we see in the next slide here, trade the Seattle Steamrollers and the Cincinnati Incineroar trading some pieces out. We're going over the Steamrollers here first. They are letting go of Wochen and Iron Thorns in exchange for the Toxtricity and Arbalava. So all in all, acquiring the Bayonet along with them. 3 moves here for the Steamrollers who are trying to get on some sort of roll here. What do you make of them?
Yeah, I know part of this trade was Matt asking specifically about these mods, and they were able to work it out. The free agent transaction is likely something to just pick up the points needed to make this other trade. Notably, picking up Ghost type, it does help with their fighting weakness that we have pointed out before. Otherwise, here picking up a couple big special attackers will certainly help. Their team, has previously lost due to just being walled with a physically defensive Skarmory. So getting some options to help break through anything that tries to do something similar is certainly nice, as well as further helping out with that fighting weakness they had, the Toxtricity, picking up a resist in place of one of their weaknesses they're letting go. So getting some different options there.
Yeah, definitely. I love the options with Boom Burst here, as we had talked about behind the scenes here. A couple of ghost types and even a soundproof Abomasnow you could potentially take advantage of the Toxtricity. It's pretty cool. See if Chad wants to take advantage of any of those options. We're going to hold off on the Incineroar for now because, look, another trade with the Incineroar. This one with the Wooper Boopers, and a couple of very similar mons in lore here, but not very similar gameplay-wise. The Boopers getting the Gyarados away from the Incineroar in exchange for the Melodic. Boopers making this transaction. What does this do for them who just keep making transactions themselves?
Yeah, the Boopers here picking up Gyarados, a fantastic mon that they were excited to get, a great Intimidator, something, especially in doubles that's fantastic to have. And adds another physical piece. Early on in the season, we had mentioned they were very specially leaning, really leaning into that psychic terrain. And now they've diversified quite a lot. They still have the Indeedee, the main psychic terrain spammer, and the special attacker, but outside of that, they're mostly looking now on the physical offense side. Gyarados, Pawmop, Muckalola, Slitherwing, Garganackle, all sorts of options, really trying to open it up for that special attacking deity to go through and prepare for a team that isn't as focused on the special defense.
And just a ton of great Terra options. Oh my goodness, another one added on there. And if you thought the Incineroar were done, you are sorely mistaken. We're still going to hold off on them because we got to talk about the Noctowls making a trade with them too, swapping a couple of Tailwind flying type options, the Vivillon to the Incineroar, and Drifblim back to the Noctowls. What does this do for the Noctowls?
Yeah, this really just swaps Tailwind with some alternative support options. Both of these mons have, various support options. Drifloon really picking up things like Strength Sap, as well as that Ghost typing, which could be a little bit better than Bug. But all in all, a fairly even trade, likely made just as the Incineroar were asking, trying to move some pieces around. But yeah,
They're going to have to be maybe a little creative if they want to use Unburden as well. The Incineroar, of course, have the Pincurchin to activate that. Not sure what the Noctowls have, but I know that Jimmy will come up with something fascinating. And to kind of round things up for the Incineroar, they are making one last trade switch, swapping out Ice types, the Crabominable, sad to see go, but in comes the Avalugg Hisui. So to go all the way back here, in total, the Incineroar pick up Wochen, Iron Thorns, Melodic, Vivillon, and the Avalugg Hisui. Quite a bevy of trades here, Steve. A lot of parts in, a lot of parts out. Tough to evaluate, but what do you think the goal was, and what does this do for their team?
well, I believe part of the goal was the Incineroar have really liked taking part in trades, especially because that isn't a capped item. Free agency transactions, of course, every season have been capped, but they have very much liked reaching out to people about trades and exploring the benefits there. So they're trying to modify their team and take as much advantage of this trading window as they can. Going mon by mon here, the Wochien, it's similar to Arboliva, provides probably a little bit more support, being able to drop every mon's attack stat could be quite good. The Iron Thorns pins very well with the Pincurchin on their team. Now they have, an electric terrain abuser, something able to take advantage of it, maybe get up a boost, and then start letting out those rock slides with flinches off of a very high attack stat, especially when boosted. Certainly can look good there. The Melodic is a nice complement to the first trade, where they traded away much of their special offense. After getting rid of Arboleva and Toxtricity, their main attackers at that point would have been the Gyarados, Gallade, Ambipom, Iron Thorns they just picked up. So, now able to get another special attacker to complement the other strong physical attackers they have. Malak also provides a little more longevity to the team and discouragement of stat dropping abilities and moves. Something the opponents will have to think carefully about before utilizing against that mon. As for the Tailwind swap, similar to what we mentioned with the Noctowls, Vivillon's, picking up some different support options along with Tailwind. Very notably for Vivillon is things like Friend Guard and Sleep Powder. Both options the Incineroar can look to take advantage of, as they don't have that with other mons in their team. And then at the bottom, the ice types. I believe they were just having trouble figuring out a way to bring Crabominal, bringing, the very strong Avalugg, very physically bulky, very physically powerful, but especially frail, and that's its flaw. We'll see if they're able to get around that. Maybe, with investment or an Assault Vest that does well, can be out there and cause some havoc.
It's a lot to kind of swallow here with all these different moves transactions, especially for a team that was doing so well. Parts in, parts out seems about even, I suppose, here. I'm not sure if it's making moves for the sake of making moves, or if there really is something cooking here. There are some interesting things where you get a second redirector here in Vivillon to go alongside his Magmar. But boy, that would have helped to set up something like, I don't know, Gyarados, which is no longer there. And I hope that the Incineroar have plans, and I trust that they do. I'm interested to see what the new pieces are going to end up doing. And, that's interesting. Steve, I thought there was supposed to be another trade on here, but it appears that we're done. What happened?
Yes, so the Close Combat Club looked to dropped their Alcremie and their Hariyama to pick up a couple of Mons. However, the Mons that they were trying to pick up were more expensive than the Mons they were dropping, just by a point, but they didn't have any extra room in their budget. Um, I was not paying close enough attention to that till I went to put in the trades after they became effective. And once I was made aware of the issue, we reached out to the club to see if they were able to, adjust the transactions in some way, but with no responses quickly and matches already starting for that week, we had to remove that trade from the records. Of course, we're not the trade deadline yet. You'll have to tune in next week to see if they corrected that trade going into week 7. One team very much hoping for them to do that would be the Corn Phalanx, who, as soon as they saw Alcremie was dropped, put in a free agent transaction to pick up Alcremie, which, of course, as it was no longer dropped, could no longer go through. So we'll have to see if anything comes of that in week 7.
The shout out of shame for not getting your points correct. But with all that trade talk out of the way, I think it's about time we finally get to the recaps. Week 5 was led off by a banger matchup. The one-loss Summit County Celtics, fresh off beating one of your hosts, facing off against Steve's Waterdeep Wobbuffets, and sweeps your power anchors in consecutive weeks with a 3-0 this week. Started turn 1, Noivern misses Draco Meteor and thus doesn't trigger Eject Pack, allowing him play onto Oko with an Ice Beam. Well, good luck getting momentum back, especially as Swampert and Electros barely can't KO Hippo, but at least Hydro Pump misses into Swampert, but then Jirachi's Zen Headbutt misses into Decidueye, and yeah, it's one of those games, not that I'd ever miss a Zen Headbutt personally. At least Steve can chip away at the Terragrass and play until it goes down, but when it gets into a trading game, Steve fell behind early, and with one more Tailwind from Torn, the Psyducks can take good advantage and finish off the Wobbuffets. Big win for them. Next up, another good matchup with the Newport Noctowls facing the Corinth Phalanx, and well, the Noctowls' undefeated season is over as the Phalanx get the big upset win. Vivillon puts Monkey Dory sleep as Tailwind goes up for the Phalanx, then Kilowattrel brings Vivillon down to Sash as it swaps into Uxie, only for it to get Toxic in the Tailwind matched. Uxie brought low in exchange for Vivillon's life, then here's the mistake. Ticketon brought in as Cloyster Surfs, which breaks its partner's balloon, which means Rhyperior's EQ hits and KOs the Ticketon way too soon. Oops. Uxie sacked, then a good read from the Noctowls to KO Serena as it's brought in, trying to blank an Ice Shard into Kilowattrel, but how about that crit EQ from Rhyperior right back into Oko Clodsire? Yeesh. Cloyster finally gets off Ice Shard into Kilowattrel, and it doesn't KO. Cloyster is the one that goes down instead to Volt Switch. Raikou finishes off Rhyperior. Now we're in the endgame with Monkey Dory still sleeping in the back. Raikou and Hydreigon versus a 3% Kilowattrel and the Barraskewda. Barraskewda will come out on top here, Okoing Hydreigon with close combat and easily taking Raikou's T-Bolt with the Terra Ground. A second CC brings Raikou into range of a Volt Switch from Kilowattrel as the Phalanx walk with a huge win. Next match, the Akron Agrons look strong with the win over the Rocket City Zigzagoons. Venusaur puts past Seaman to sleep turn 1, and it plus Illuminati are doing damage to Meowstic and Superior. Weatherball in the Sun KOing Superior. Squawkabilly put to sleep as Crook gets off damage, but the crit Bug Buzz from Illuminati, that's a KO. Venusaur then barely tanks Lucario East speed and KOs that too. The only mons left are asleep, time to get to work. Even as Squawkabilly wakes up and KOs Venusaur, that just lets Typhlosion come in with the sun still up, grab the last 2 KOs, dominant from start to finish. Next up, another dominant win, this one putting my Buffalo Bouffalant back in the win column over the Hippo Hides. 3 turns in a row of Magnezone Volt switching into Protects as Blastoise takes down Lycanroc, but the Wolf did break down the leads pretty well to let Hammerot KO Wigglytuff, Torracat to help neuter Low Kicks as Magnezone KOs Blastoise, then Florges KOs Low Kicks as Torracat burns Mudsdale and lowers Hydra stats too. Torterra KOs Mudsdale, Torterra KOs Espeon as Florges goes down, and Torterra KOs Hydra, just a straightforward attack what's in front of you kind of win for the Bouffalant. Next match, 2 weird seasons collide as the Corviknight Clobbers defeat the Route 1 Burbs. Electabuzz tanks 2 hits and goes down as Zoroark gets up to substitute, and it gets up the Nasty Plot as Bishop breaks that sub, KOing Pachirisu even as it goes down in response from a crit Stone Edge. With the real Braviary out now, the Burbs keep playing around Sucker Punch without it happening. The Bird getting chipped down big time. Cinder does KO Tauros, but Weirder survives the Braviary hit to KO back. Weirder sacked Haxorus, but it's Bisharp's turn to set up with the Swords Dance. Muck misses a big gunk shot, then even when Terra Ghost Bisharp survives the double up from Sucker Punch and Terra Dark crunch Haxorus, it can KO the former Dragon back, and when Cinder goes down, it's up to Wartortle, and bad news about that, the Clobberers get the dub. Halfway through, the Wooper Boopers are just on a roll, beating the Evergreen Empoleons in a close 2-0 win. Turn 1, Helping Hand boosted Wild Charge from Slithering Okos and Yammer's Therian. Whoa! Helping Hand boosted Grass Knot from Glow King barely misses the Oko and a Garganacl next, and after a Tailwind, Emboar finally takes down Jump Bluff. Terra Psychic Indeedee is in, and combined with Salt Cure, down goes Berserker from full, very nice, but Regirock does take out Garganacl. Another Expanding Force is doing so much damage, but Glow King and Regirock live, and down goes Slitherwing, but Indeedee still has a couple another left in it. Down go Emboar and Regirock, one more, protecting there as Trick Room goes up, and Muck is put to sleep. That's the only way you can lose. But the turn 1 wake up, and down goes Glow King. Brute Bonnet does KO Indeedee, but it can't do it all by itself, especially when Palmont gets a double protect to help stall out the Trick Room. The Boopers narrowly walk with this one. Next match, the San Jose Sharpedos are looking pretty impressive with a 4-0 win over the Rocky Mountain Cloisters. Grafai gets up Sun and Encores and Talion to protect, but the Cloisters aren't really getting anywhere yet. Pheasantipity KO'd over a few turns, but it gets the taunt off on a Gothrita first at least, as Slacking pounds away to KO it eventually. Wheezing with a good Willow into Dondozo, who seem to get Charizard in, but not into a Slacking double edge. Oh no! Typhlosion with a nice switch into a CC, and then Wheezing can burn Hitmonlee too as it goes down too. Snorlax with a big EQ to Typhlosion, but Slacking is back in. Down goes Dozo, Wheezing with another big Wisp into Snorlax, and Slacking is just running train through the Cloisters with another KO into Snorlax and a Grafai I2, the combo. Next up, the Calgary Corviknights keep rolling with a win over the Pikeville Pups. Comfey is setting up Calm Minds, and Gliscor goes Terra Water and gets the Poison Heal going, but Slowbro Calm Minds too and gets the Scald crit into Comfey, but the Priority Synthesis is keeping Comfey healthy as Gliscor now also sets up with Swords Dance. Comfey and Gliscor are just staying healthy, and the Swebs from Rabambi won't matter much if you don't switch. Oh, there's a crit into Gliscor from Slowbro as it lives on 9, but it's just healing up, and at +4 can KO Slowbro finally. Just keep attacking and tanky hits, living a Shadow Claw on 4. Down goes Cyclizar, Mimikyu, Ampharos, and Skeledirge don't even need to switch as the tankiness from the leads are too much. A 6-0 for Greg. Next up, an important match for both the Close Combat Club and the Boulder Boulders, but the club shows up where the Boulders do not. A dominant win for John. The Boulders get up early T-Spikes, but how about a coaching and calm mind into the Alchemy to give it a near Omni boost, and then doing it again turn 2 despite getting poisoned. With Terra Ghost, it's living quite well in a pair of +2 Terra Blast, KO Tentacruel, Draining Kiss, Oko, Spiritomb, and heals up the Alchemy too, and it's just taking hits with ease at KO Salazzle too. It's just healing up more than the Boulders can do to it thanks to Terra Blast and the Draining Kiss, and the Boulders have no answers, especially seeing Chandelure help clear the Corviknight, and investing in the cake was the truth. And finally, the Cincinnati Incineroar have a clear path to the 1 seed as they take on the Seattle Steamrollers. But what's this? Chad Steamrollers with a big upset win. What a crazy week 5. Drifbloom sets up Tailwind, but Pincurchin gets flinched, and there's a lot of damage being thrown out by the Steamrollers. A double KO turn 2 with Iron Thorns and Wochen quite healthy, still ahead of the trade. Tauros goes down to Triple Axle plus Sacred Sword, but now that Tailwind is out, what's the plan? Ambipom triggers weak armor from Ceruledge, which means it can for sure outspeed and KO Gallade with Poltergeist, and then follow that up by KOing the Ambipom that came back in. Gyarados D-dances, but is it enough? Iron Thorns is down, but here's the Snowcore. Beartick with a real nice encore, locking Registeel into Iron Defense. Very cool. And now can lock Gyarados into Waterfall as well, doing very little to Abomasnow. And Blizzard freezes Gyarados, and that means it's an easy target to double up into. Then encore the Registeel again. It can't escape. Eventually chipping it down with Bitter Blade to KO. Chad walks with this one as the Season 4 Bouffalant and Season 12 Noctowls rejoice as the only undefeated full seasons in the league. That's a wrap for week 5. We're starting off week 6 with another great matchup. You already know the Bouffalant and Wobbuffets had a crazy close match, but 38 turns, what happened? Venomoth puts Hammerot and Torcat to sleep turns 1 and 2, but turn 3, Hammerot wakes up and Sucker Punch KOs Zoroark, staying alive even if barely. Aqua into Blaziken. That is a very tanky Blaziken, SDing up with Clear Amulet. Torcat finally wakes up, lives on 4, and roars away the Terra Steel Blaziken. Good riddance, as Florges is brought low, but then we get the unfortunate back and forth. The Dunsparce setting up rocks, Mandibus defogging, Florges wishing, and Electros trying to break through but not being able to. We get out of that long enough for Torcat to go down and watch Shaman pass up a prime opportunity to rid the world of Blaziken, but then we're back into the same Formon, staring at each other for a long time, actually. A lot of pivoting, a lot of dragon tailing coming out from the Dunsparce there. And Hammerot eventually also getting healed up by Wish too. And Jirachi's trying to life do itself and its allies up, but those rocks are starting to hurt a bit as well. Venomoth brought very low into rocks range. Turn 29, we finally are starting to get somewhere. Florges does not protect after Wish to instead bring Mandibuzz below 25%. The Dunsparce Dragon Tail set out even as Florges goes down. Shaman KOs Venomoth, Electros KOs Shaman, but rocks go back up. Lycanroc KOs Jirachi, and now we're in the endgame. The Dunsparce goes down. It's basically 2v2. What's the play? Lycanroc lands Stone Edge to KO Electros. Now it's a formality to bring down the half-health chicken. The Bouffalant with the win in a very different way. Sorry about that, Steve. Next match, Boldors looked sluggish week 5, and the Phalanx looked excellent defeating Noctils week 5, so of course, the Boldors pick up the win this week as we wonder who is actually good and who is actually bad in this league. Turn 1 Spiritomb gets up Trick Room, and Snarl lets Raichu get off some damage before going down, letting in Conkeldurr. The sideways Willow into Guts Conkeldurr, doing massive damage into Serena, then catching Magmortar switching in, and on the last turn of Trick Room, Serena goes down 2. Terra Ground Rhyperior does KO Spiritomb and gets Conkeldurr low, with it and Uxie getting low too, but Avalugg sets up Snowscape, Terra Ice Blizzard from Porygon Z KOs Rhyperior. Avalugg finishes off Uxie, and the Scarf Blizzard takes care of Kilowattrel and Phalanx in one shot each. The Boldors are sickos, but that was cool. Next up, the Evergrande and Empoleons are back on track with a win over the Pikeville Pups. Hitmontop brought in low turn 1 and finished off turn 2. Basculegion, the culprit that barely hangs on from a Shadow Claw. Enamorous brings so Slowbro low, forcing it out, though Basculegion does go down. Enamorous nails Rabombi switching in, and Skeldridge brought low by Regirock. Enamorous hangs on from Mimikyu's hits and nails Skeldridge for the KO, then Brute Bonnet with a big Sucker Punch KO into Mimikyu. Slowbro gets caught out too. The momentum is too much, and even though Cyclops picks up Brute Bonnet, it does go down to the Empoleons with the win. Next match, the Psyducks just keep on rolling, this time beating out the Steamrollers. Turn 1 Tornadus KOs Tauros, and Hippo comes in to cancel out the snow. A dominant start. Turn normal Boomburst Toxtricity does a lot, but a double up into it ends that threat. Hippo even lives an Icicle Crash at +1, and the +2/+2 Cerulege gets hazed by Wheezing, which is brutal. Plus Decidueye Terra's fire to lift a Bitter Blade, and Cerulege does get KO'd back, even though Bayonet does take down the Owl with Destiny Bond. With only a Snow Duo left, Zach's okay with sacking Hippo to change the weather and position himself to get the last 2 KOs. A clean win from the Psyducks. Next up, the Corviknight Clobbers keep up their weird season as they fall to the Rocky Mountain Cloisters. Turn 1, Poltergeist survives a gunk shot to set up Trick Room, then sacks itself to let Belly Drum Snorlax go through, even though it gets burned. But here's a hint, Plus Sticks is still a lot. His Sableye goes down, and Glowbro barely hangs on, and a follow-up Rock Slide finishes it and Moltres, and Gothorita even pitches in with a Foul Play taking out Bramblegast. Another Trick Room up as soon as the first expires, so even as Snorlax finally goes down to Sucker Punch, it's a 2v2, the Cloisters have the advantage. Rock Slide from Dondozo does a ton, then Heatwave KOs Frostlass. Bisharp picked off as the Cloisters get their second win. Halfway through, and hey, the Hippo Hides pick up a win against the Rocket City Zigzagoons, giving every team a win this season. Espeon Oko's Squawkabilly right away, and Staraptor skillfully dodges Icicle Crash while bringing Piloswine below half, then it sets up Tailwind as it goes down to Rotom. Lucario and Rotom chunk to half, and a nice switch to Gengar to tank E-Speed as Low Kicks crit KOs Rotom. Gengar chunks Grook and Lucario, which lets Terra Fairy Espeon take them out. Hoodra cleans Piloswine. There's no offense left for the Zigzagoons. Good job by the Hides. Next match, the Akron Agrons hang on to get a tough win over the San Jose Sharpedos. Turn 1, Wheezing swaps in to stop Prankster, which lets Terrifier Typhlosion KO it before getting off anything. Gunkshot misses Thwacky, but Wheezing goes down to Flash Cannon from the building. Then Overquill lives on 1 to get off a crunch into Oricorio, who hangs on with Sash to set up Tailwind. Duraludon dodges Heatwave, but it's Kingdra with the double KO with Muddy Water before going down to Slacking. We all find out that Worry Seed does not work into Truant. RIP. Duraludon gets a Draco off to Oko, Inteleon is slacking, takes a nap, but it wakes up at the worst time to Oko. Gardevoir 2v2 now as Toadscroll goes Terra Steel to resist U-turn and sends Slacking back to sleep. Thwacky goes down to a Draco and a Body Press, and up to breaking through Slacking. Body Press doing good damage. Tentacruel's Rage Powder to Toadscroll. Its Rage Powder draws Slacking's ire when it wakes up, and it's too late. Duraludon clutches it as the Agrons win again. Next up, another close one between the Incineroar and the Boopers, and the Boopers keep on rolling as the Incineroar dropped 2 in a row now. The turn 1 Terra Bug Iron Thorns as DD's up, taking half, and Palmot taking half while Tailwind goes up for the Boopers. Iron Thorns tanks a couple more hits and brings Jumpluff and Palmot low as Wo-Chen heals up the Mechadino. Then a nice move from the Boopers to Oko Wo-Chen instead of targeting down Iron Thorns. Jump Left goes down and Palmot goes down, but Chip is starting to rack up. Muck goes low, and so do Avalog and Melodic, though they can heal up with their cover as rocks go up again. And Muck and Garkanako combine to KO Gallade before it does too much. Muck finally goes down to Melodic, but here's the Indeedee, and here's the Pincurchin trying to tank and change the terrain. It's just a bit too slow to do anything, though, and it goes down after paralyzing Slitherwing, who still OHKOs Avalog anyways. Iron Thorns does finish off Slitherwing, but down it goes down too. Melodic cannot do it by itself. Down it goes, and the Boopers have won 4 in a row. Next match is another close one, but the Noctowls are back on track with a win over Calgary. Calm Mind Raikou is getting scary as Electivire and Gliscor are brought low, but Gliscor does KO Infernape early. Electivire goes down as Raikou gets chunked big time, going down to Weavile as Tailwinds go up from both sides. Tinkaton brought low too, and Terrifier Flamethrower type from Hydreigon finally takes down the Gliscor. It's brought low by Espathra, but goes down to Quaquaval too, and then the Reuniclus lives a double up thanks to Colberberry to barely get up Trick Room here in the endgame. Espathra down, Quaquaval down, Weavile and Comfey barely hang on, but Terrifier Weavile does KO Tinkaton, but it's too late as there's still one more turn of Trick Room left. The Noctowls grab the last 2 KOs to get to win number 5. And finally, the Burbs continue their bizarre season with a dominant win over the club. Alchemy Berry survives a turn 1 double up, but cannot live the Wartortle follow-up powerful. Cleavor almost takes out Volbeat, takes out the Wartortle, but Volbeat does pick it up. Powerful mons here getting KOs. Hariyama puts a coaching into Rhydon as it KOs Cinderace thanks to Dailin, but here's the comeback as Haxorus gets off a pair of D-Dances, and Zoroark takes out the boosted Rhydon. Terra Dragon is enough to OHKO Teriyama, and then enough to OHKO Chandelure. Cleavor goes down, Volbeat down, Haxorus coming through with the big sweep for the Burbs. And that's week 6 in the books. And with all of that done all at once, here are your power rankings. Yeah, we got only 2 teams left with 1 loss, as opposed to previously having 2 undefeated teams. Noctowls, of course, benefiting quite a bit from the Incineroar falling, as they will remain number 1 despite the loss. Summit County Psyducks also with only 1 loss currently, still getting wins number 2. Wooper Boopers 3, Corinth Phalanx 4, Buffalo Bouffalant 5, Calgary Corviknight 6, Incineroar sliding all the way down to 7, the Agrons picking up the rear here at 8. Steve, where else to start, I guess, except for the Noctowls? They did finally drop a game, but still looking pretty darn good. It was not a shameful loss at all.
Yep, that is correct. I, recall fondly that loss and sitting there thinking, oh, yes, the Incineroar are going to be able to do this. They'll win this week, and, they'll have a tough game next week, but they can win that. And, 6-0, they'll be number 1. They'll be so happy about that. And, the Noctowls opened the door, but the Incineroar did not go through. And so, yeah, no real question here. Noctowls able to stay at 5-1, a very dominating differential at this point, too. Well above the Psyducks also at 5-1. So, it, really no questions here. Noctowls seem like the best team right now. But, with doubles, every team can lose and has lost. So, exciting to see what the rest of the season brings for them.
Yeah, probably a little sooner than we thought that every team would have a loss. The season for Bouffalant will, of course, breathe a sigh of relief after their perfect season remains intact, not being threatened by another perfect season here. I think really the more interesting question here is something that we talked about quite a bit before all this. The Summit County Psyducks are the other 5-1 team, but those Wooper Boopers are right there behind them. We do have them in order here of the Psyducks 2 and the Boopers 3, but Steve, there's a real argument the Boopers might be the next team up behind the Noctowls right now.
Yep, we did discuss swapping these teams. Of course, early on, I believe week 2, the Psyducks did beat the Boopers, so there is that going for them. However, the Boopers have been strong since then. But yeah, both teams, have had some good games. The Psyducks, of course, having a little bit lower differential despite having the better record. The Boopers also have had a fairly tough schedule. As of now, every team they've played is 500 or better. Whereas the Psyducks have played a couple of, half of their games have been against teams with a below 500 record, including the game they lost. So, a little bit of a difference there. We're feeling a little bit more confident in the Boopers. However, of course, the Psyducks have already locked up their place, as well as their remaining schedule is a lot more favorable than the Boopers, not playing any teams on the power rankings, whereas the Boopers have to play Calgary. So we gave that slight edge to the Psyducks. We do fully expect if both teams were to win both of their remaining games and go into the playoffs, our power rankings will likely have these teams swapped at that point, just based on the remaining schedules and, the strength of schedules the Boopers would have to overcome to get to that point compared to the Psyducks.
Yeah, Boopers are on a roll. Psyducks are too, though. Some nice wins. 2 teams we are eager to see what they can do the rest of the way. Probably the next little chunk here would be, I suppose, the 4 through 6, the Phalanx, Bouffalant, and Corviknight, all looking pretty good here. Phalanx, of course, with a huge win, taking down the Noctiles. Bouffalant just rolling on, getting a nice win over the Wobbuffets, winning in a couple different ways over the past couple weeks. In Calgary, what else can you say except, wow, their differential is crazy, and they will find ways to win in the regular season. Phalanx, Bouffalant, Corviknight, pretty nice grouping.
Yeah, all three of these teams, fairly close, 4-2, having some key wins for all of these teams. All of them having some close losses against other teams in the power rankings. Not much to distinguish them, but this is the order we came onto. We really didn't talk about this before recording, and I forget why I ordered them in this way, but this is what the way they are.
Absolutely, they are, and I do feel like these top six are probably the six best teams right now in terms of these are the six that I can see realistically winning right now. Maybe there are a couple of teams just below with a strong showing at the end of the season can potentially muscle their way into the conversation. Those top six have really been standing out to me, at least in positive ways, with some good wins, some big wins, winning in different ways, etc. And that's a shame because our number 17, the Cincinnati Incineroar, were right there in the middle of that conversation. And oh boy, the wheels have started to come off for the Incineroar. Steve, I kind of wonder if these trades have steered them in the wrong direction, if they'll be able to recover in time for a good playoff run.
Yeah, that is what everyone is asking at this point. The Incineroar going 4-0, and then very surprisingly in week 5 dropping a game to the Seattle Steamrollers and then losing a close one week 6 to the Wooper Boofers on a downward spiral at this point. As well as the teams they had beaten or earlier in the season, some mixed records. The wins, some of them not looking as good as they did before, weaker opponents. All in all, in terms of teams in the up here in the power rankings, having one of the weakest strengths of schedules, and kind of at a downward turn here, trading away the team that it did so well, and now some questions are arising on the team. We'll have to see if any trades going into week 7 and their last 2 weeks can shore up our faith in them, or if they'll continue to drop.
And finally, the Agrons are one of the teams here this season. They're winning against teams they should win against, losing against the teams that it makes sense they would lose against. They seem to be right where they should be, but nothing too terrible that we drop them. Although, Steve, there are a couple of 3-3 teams that we did consider putting ahead of the Agrons here.
Yep, that is correct. Very notably, there are a couple 3-3 teams. 2 of them that we more easily dismissed were the San Jose Sharpedos and the Boulder Boulders. Both of them having wins over at least one of the 4-2 teams. Some losses to others, however. In the end, both of those teams, in terms of the strength of schedule, otherwise, some losses to other 3-3 teams from them, really dissuaded us. The other team we considered, of course, is my Waterdeep Wobbuffets. Similar to those other teams having, wins over a 4-2 team, the Wobbuffets though have had one of the tougher schedules as well, playing one of the only, if not the only, team to have played so far both the Noctiles and the Psyducks, the two 5-1 teams. So the strength of schedule there, as well as history, could make a case for the Wobbuffets, but we decided to keep the Agrons. The game lead, especially into what the remaining schedules, certainly will be beneficial for the Agrons as they, even losing out, have a chance to get in, while the Wobbuffets have a little more of a uphill climb to make it into the playoffs.
And that's a pretty nice segue into looking at the standings here. We do include some teams that are not in the top 8 this time because there is a little bit more to talk about. First off, congratulations to the Noctiles and Psyducks who have clinched playoff spots, but what that playoff cutoff spot is yet to be determined. As we can see right now, the number 8 team is 4-2, but after that, we have a bevy of 3-3 teams that are still looking to make it into the playoffs as well. And heck, there are even some 2-4 teams that could potentially get in. Things get a little bit dicey here. So before we go over anything else, Steve, talk to us about the playoffs and what it may or may not take to get in at this point.
Yeah, so at this point, playoffs are either going to be needing 5 or 4 wins. It won't require anything like 6 wins. Notably, it's a multiple of these 4-2 teams play each other. So five wins guarantees it, thus locking up the Noctiles and Psyducks. It's really going to come down to especially the 4-2 teams and the 3-3 teams. In order for a 4-4 record to make it, we're going to need at least one of the 4-2 teams to drop 2 games. and none of the 3-3 teams to win both of their remaining games, which is certainly possible. Um, yeah, but that's the main thing into how we're getting into the playoffs here.
And that's why we want to include the 3 and 3, so we can see all the possible culprits for keeping teams out of the playoffs here. Potentially, that 5-3 or 4-4 becoming much closer than maybe we had anticipated. I wonder what that cutoff will end up being, depending on the schedules, which we'll go over in a little bit. But otherwise, again, Noctel Sidex at the top. We got 6 teams 4-2, bunch of teams 3-3. But Steve, the differential is still just all over the place. We have 13 of the 20 teams here with positive differentials, and heck, the 5-1 teams have worse differentials than the Corviknight and Bouffalant. The Incineroar are all the way down to +2, whereas your Wobbuffets are 3-3 +8. The differentials sure have been just all over the place here with doubles.
Yes, certainly some of these teams are doing better job at minimizing or maximizing their differential. Some teams having close wins, close losses, really keeping it close to even. Others taking those big wins, trying to push it up as much as they can. Of course, differential will not matter in terms of who makes it, but it'll be very interesting as that differential, especially towards that top end, very well could determine who is getting a bye, especially if 4-4 makes it. There could be a whole lot of play in games. We could get all 13 of these teams making it in. Maybe a couple of the 2-4s are able to creep in as well. So differential could very much matter for that 1, 2, 3. But beyond that, it will likely not be the most important.
And with that, I think it's time we go over the schedules here for the next couple of weeks. Week 7 schedule could help determine a lot, but Steve, at the face of it, there's not that much to look at here, but there is enough here I think that is impactful.
Yeah, not a ton of marquee matchups this week 7. A couple notable ones: the Noctowls and Boldors, as well as the San Jose Sharpedos and Psyducks. Two pairs of 3-3 teams playing 5-1 teams. A great chance for these even teams to make a name for themselves. Really declare, "Hey, I'm here to make it." Get a big win here, followed up with an presumably easier win next week, and make it in that way at 5-3, or even getting to 4-4 while knocking down one of these currently in the playoffs Titans off their high horse. Really sounds like a great way to get yourself momentum going into the playoffs.
Absolutely. That's why I'm also looking at the Evergreen Empoleons, who have a chance here against the Agrons to do something very funny and try and knock them down, especially considering the Agrons will have next week, which we'll go over in a little bit. But also shout out to the Corviknight matchup. We love to see Calgary Corviknight and their Corviknight Clobberers. Just makes for a very funny mascot matchup at the very least. And hey, maybe the Clobberers can get hot or at the right time against a team with a +16 differential. But week 8, as we all know, is a week filled with marquee matchups. Steve always does a good job at setting those up. You can go just about anywhere here. What do you see?
I'm going to take the entire left column. There are a ton of great matchups here, of course. We got two 4-2 teams in the Buffalo Bouffalant and Akron Agrons. The 5-1 Noctowls taking on another currently even team in the club could have very important playoff implications, especially for that club in week 8. The 3-3 Wobbuffets, we're talking about just off the power rankings. There's a case to make them on against the 4-2 Incineroar. A match I was much more worried for, but as the Incineroar have proven to be a little more followable, makes it look a little better. The 4-2 Calgary Corviknight going against the 4-2 Boopers. The team we have at 3 versus the team with the incredible differential at this point. That'll be a fantastic matchup. And of course, the rock match between the Rocky Mountain Cloisters and the Rocket City Zigzagoons. Both teams, of course, currently eliminated from the playoffs, but which team will be the rock team in the end?
Yeah, I wonder if either of them will end up going paper or just going to have a stalemate there for a while. You could even potentially look at things like the Burb Sharpedos or the Clobberers Boulders as well, depending on how things go. Burbs and Clobberers win, they need to get 4-4. Sharpedos and Boulders currently 3-3. That could be a big stepping stone for them as well. There are a ton of great matches in the final week, and with only 2 weeks left, you're going to have to come back and find out what happens there. Where is the playoffs cutoff going to be? 4-4, 5-3 are some very good teams going to miss playoffs. What's going to happen to the Incineroar going to continue to fall off? Or there's some ascendant teams that we haven't even talked about yet? You have to find out in just a couple of weeks as we finish up the regular season for season 17 of the Wooper Club League. We'll see you then.